Alright, good day class. Today we are going to learn about types of sentences. Okay, before we start, types of sentences, we have four types. First, we have simple sentence. Second, we have compound sentence. And third, we have complex sentence. Number four, we have compound complex sentence. Okay, before I explain one by one, you can clearly see there I write in blue, which is ICDC. Okay, so now you're wondering, and also fanboys. Alright, so before I tell that, let me explain about what the meaning of ICDC is. Well, this is the meaning of ICDC. If you can see here, we have independent clause here. Independent clause is also known as IC. So example here, it actually the meaning is it makes sense on its own sentences. When we say this, it means that it does not need any other extra words actually, and it can construct their own sentences. We do not need to add any addition as like because, something this kind of word. We do not need this kind of words. So example here you can see, Samisha went to the park and she ate pasta as the second example. So you can see here, Samisha went to the park is a complete sentence. It does not need a, it's not a hanging sentence. It does not need any additions there. So example here also, she ate pasta. So we clearly can see that it's a complete sentence which has no extra words or anything. So it's a complete sentence. We call it as IC, which is independent clause. Alright, so now we are going to talk about dependent clause. So dependent clause is also known as DC, dependent clause. Okay, it means that it does not make sense. It does not make sense on its own sentences. It does not make sense, okay, on its own sentences. Can understand, right? For example, here we can see it is after she finished school and also because she was angry. That means that if you see carefully, when we say example here, because she was angry, and then we just put full stop, is it a complete sentence? No, because we cannot put because and after at the early of the sentences. That means before the because and after, we need to have other sentences right here. Then only we can make it as a complete sentence. Well, you have to see this. Dependent clause actually, they are very dependent on people ataupun in the words. Assume it as a human and people. Some people are dependent, some people are independent. When we say independent in clauses, it means that it does not depend on other sentences. It has a complete sentence and it can make on its own. But for the dependent clause, actually, the word like after, because, as you can see here, they need some other sentences in front of them, then only they can make it as a complete sentence. Well, that's why we call them as dependent clause. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, now, as I told you, we have four types of sentences. Let's talk about the simple sentence. Well, you can see here the simple sentence is actually called as I see. Alright, it is I see. For example, it is just a very, very simple sentences and very, very easy. It is very, very easy. You just have one I see, which means one complete sentence. For example, here, if I can tell you, it's like Ali went to bed. That's it. And this is how you know it is I see, because these sentences, it makes sense. It does not need any other words like because, although, even though. We don't have to add anything in front, correct, right? Or anything behind, which means that this is I see, as it does not need to do and put anything in front and behind. It can construct the sentences on its own. That's why we call that as I see. It does not need anything. It is very independent. Well, let's talk about compound sentence here. For compound sentence, you need to understand that I write here fanboys. So before I explain about IC, IC, what does this fanboys means? Well, the fanboy means actually like this. F stands for, as you can see here. F stands for, N stands for A, N stands for nor, B stands for but, O stands for or, Y stands for yet, and S stands for so. So we have to see, whenever you see compound sentence and have these letters of the words of fanboys, well, you know it is a compound sentence. How to identify is just you see the fanboys. For example, here, it means that it contains two or more independent clauses. Okay? Clauses. And by the way, fanboys are also known as CC. It also known as CC. What does CC means? Okay. CC means it's coordinating. It means that it is coordinating conjunction. Conjunction. Okay. It is normally is CC, IC, 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 or it can be as IC, CC, IC. This is what commonly used for the compound sentences. Alright, the red one here. This is what it's common lah compared to IC, IC. You will normally see IC, CC, IC. Okay, do not forget the comma. Okay, without a comma, we didn't get a mark. So it's comma very, very important. For example, here I can tell you it's actually very basic. Here, for the compound sentence, is about like this. Okay, I love to eat. I love to eat nasi lemak. Example, this is what you're writing. I love to eat nasi lemak. Okay, but, right? My mother hates to eat it. To eat it. Can you see this? This is the sample of the compound sentence. Yes, you can see here. Okay, here you see. I love to eat nasi lemak, comma, very important, and then we have but. But is actually conjunction, right? Coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunction. Ataupun any words of fanboys. Any word of fanboys. This is IC, independent clause, because it can construct its own sentences. Here you can see my mother hates it is also IC. As you can see, it can construct their own sentences. So this is also what we call as the compound sentence. I hope you understand, alright? Alright, so now let's go for the complex sentence here. Normally when we hear about the complex sentence, it has to have one independent clause and one or more dependent clause, alright? One or more dependent clause. It need to have one IC. DC can be one or more. One or more DC. They can have one or more DC. Okay? They have to need to have that. Alright, so for example of the complex sentences here, actually you need to remember like what I have explained. So it's normally like this. When I do, it's complex, right? Okay. Or you need to know that it need to has the DC, IC. This is another one thing you need to know. Okay, DC, IC. Okay. For example, here it's actually like this. For example of it is here. Okay, because life is boring. Because life is boring, we need to go for vacation. For vacation. Can you see what I did? So I used the word actually here because. I used the word because. Because life is boring, we need to go for vacation. As you see, this word is definitely DC. Because why? Because the word because. Right? Because life is boring. That means there need to be something in front of the word of because. But since I didn't use it, it means that it's DC. And then here we can complete a sentence. Alright, we can construct and complete a sentence, which means we need to go for vacation. It's a complete one sentences that is IC. So DC comma IC is normally for the dependent complex sentence. Complex sentence. Now let's talk about compound complex sentence. Normally, whenever you see compound complex sentence, it has 2 or more independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clauses. So it can be like this: IC, DC, or it could also be as IC, DC, DC. It could also come IC, DC, DC. For example, here I can say like this. Let's go for this thing. Because I am a teacher, and then we comma it, and then we say some people assume that I can't sing. I can't sing. And others expects me to teach. As you can see, this is a sample of DC, IC, and IC. It can also be DC, IC, IC. Can you see here? Okay, so this is for this, yeah? This one. Compound complex sentence. Here, this one you can see, because I am a teacher, this is DC. And then we have some people assume that I can't sing. So complete sentence here, so IC. And other expects me to teach. As you can see, other expect me to teach is IC. Alright, it's IC. That is compound complex sentence. Okay, here we can see like example here lah. Jimmy and Zaina host late night talk show. What do you think this is? This is simply a simple sentence. It's basically just a simple sentence. Okay, it's a simple sentence. And number 2 here we have, I plan to drive work, but it's what? Fanboys. Whenever you see fanboy, it means it's a compound sentence. Compound sentence. Now, let's see number C. Number 3, if Zaro got the job, he would have to commute 30 miles. So, decided the job was not worth it. So, this would be what? This is compound complex sentence. Compound complex sentence got word of so, and you can see the sentences are very lengthy. So that's why I know it is a compound complex sentence. It's a compound complex sentence. Now we have here, Nani went to class even though he was sick or she was. Here we have the word even though. So you know that Nani went to class even though she was sick. So here is first sentence, IC, and here even though she was sick is DC. So what does this mean? IC, DC. It is a complex sentence. It's a complex sentence. Now, do this exercise. Sorry, you can see the answer there. Do this exercise and tell me what is it. His crude remarks offended me. Okay, it means that is a simple because it can complete one sentence. How about this sentence? The boys and the girls were shouting loudly. It's basically a very simple sentence. I just put it simple, right? Make sure you write simple sentences. Okay. Now, number 3. We saw a film which was based on the life of Nelson Mandela. What is this? Okay, just think about it. What is this? Okay, this one, even though it's a which, it's also considered as a compound sentences as well. It's a compound sentence word here, right? So it is actually, here it is DC. It's dependent. We saw a film is IC. Why is it IC? Because you can see we saw a film is a complete word. Now, before the which, you have to add something, which means it's a DC, dependent clause. So this is why I say it is a complex, because it's IC, DC. It is a complex sentences. Right? It's a complex sentences. Let's see the D. Jane and Alice had their dinner and then they went for dinner. Okay, dear. So now we're gonna look at Jane and Alice had their dinner and went for a walk. What does this mean? This is a compound sentences. Why is it compound sentences? The word and. Right? Okay, so this is actually compound sentences. Okay, let's see the E. If I'm too fast, make sure you pause the video, do it and check the answer. Alright, the E here. The E here is actually the water was so cold that we could not swim in it. So what is the answer? What is the answer? Okay, it will be complex sentences. Well, why is it complex sentences? Just think about it. It's because the water was so cold. It is IC. The water was so cold is IC, independent clause. And then we comma here that we could not swim in it. So that would be dependent clause, because before the word that, you need to add something in the sentences. Okay, so that's the reason that we put IC, DC as complex sentences. Okay, let's see the F. Okay, the customer were happy because they got what they wanted. Guess what is this? What is this? Basically, you saw this. Because they got what they wanted, this is actually dependent clause. Because the word before because, you need to add something in front. That's why we call it a dependent clause. Whereas, this one, the customer were happy is actually IC. It is a complete sentence. The customer were happy. So if it's IC, DC or DC, IC, what's the answer? It is a complex sentences. Alright, thank you. So let's see about I live in Kuala Lumpur. Very basic kind of sentence. It means that it is a simple sentences. Now, here we can see the last one, okay, the last one. I plan to drive work, but I could not until the mechanic repaired my car. What does this mean? This is basically what? Okay, you see the sentences are very lengthy here. It's very, very lengthy. Okay, number 2, here we see but. Alright, now we see until. Which means it has basically 2 or 3 more sentences. It is definitely a compound complex sentence. Compound complex sentence. I hoped this has helped you. Okay, stay tuned for my next class. I will teach you more about English. Thank you.